Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Google Digital Garage for the session Find Your Balance with Technology. Now, before we jump into all the exciting content for today's session, a couple of housekeeping tips before we get started. Firstly, if you're having any problems hearing me or seeing me today, please go ahead and refresh your browser. It normally irons out any potential problems. Next up, we'd love you to get involved. This is very much an interactive session, so hopefully you'll get involved with today's chat. In order for you to get involved with today's chat, you would be required to have a YouTube account. It's relatively easy to get set up. Once you're all set up, you'll be able to fire over those questions to myself and Mohammed. And I'll get to those introductions very, very shortly. We will be pausing throughout today's session for any particular questions, but as the session's going along, don't be shy, pop in your questions, pop in your queries, and if you're there right now, please go ahead into the chat and go ahead and say hello and let us know where you're tuning in from today. Next up, this particular live training is part of a broader offering from the Google Digital Garage. So I hugely encourage you to click on the link in the description below. It'll take you to their website and give you a plethora of information, online courses, and many, many, many more live webinars very similar to this one. Next up, if you'd like to have the closed captions, in other words, the subtitle, because I tend to speak rather fast, I'll do my very best to slow it down. But if you'd like to have the closed captions, all you'll need to do is hover over this video, find the gear cog, which is the settings option, and you'll be able to find the closed captions, in other words, the subtitles, for you to follow along just a little bit more effectively. But now that the housekeeping tips are out of the way, hopefully you're going to go say hello within the chat. I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Daryl. I'm a digital trainer, facilitator, and ex-seafarer. I come from an incredibly diverse background, spanning various sectors across the world, including hospitality, recruitment, learning and development, sales and marketing, and of course, technology. I have loved technology since the moment I put my hands on a keyboard since I was a kid. So hopefully my passion will be put through today's session. But with that being said, there's a couple of things that we need to think about before we jump into. We've got the lovely Mohammed, which is in the chat. He's also a Google Digital Garage trainer, and he's already said a couple of hellos within the chat. So please, if you are there, go ahead and say hello with Mohammed. Interact with us as much as possible, because today's session is very, very much interactive. So my name is Daryl. I'll be delivering today's session. We got Mohammed in the chat. Please go ahead and get involved as much as possible. But with that being said, let's go see what are we going to be covering over the next hour or so. Well, we're going to break it down to 4 steps. Now, within these 4 steps, number 1, we're going to look at how we can define what is digital well-being. Before we can move any further, I suppose this is why we need to find that balance, is what is digital well-being, so we can find that balance that we're looking for to have a more of a productive day and think that we have focused more on the positives. Next up, we're going to look at defining what balance means to you. And when I say you, is every single person is their own individual, and balance is going to be dependent on what you like and what you don't like. So we need to try and find out what that balance is. But what we're going to do today is we're going to take you through a series of questions, reflective questions, that we're going to get you to get involved with. With that being said, hopefully you've got a pen and pad. I seem to have lost my pen, but hopefully you've got some paper and some pen ready to go, and also your fingertips to get ready to start inputting any of those answers into that chat. Next up, we're going to look at tips and tools to achieving that balance that we're looking for. And once we've discovered those tips and tools, how do we then apply that? So that's what we're going to cover over the next hour. Sit tight. And I'd like to say that you've all entered a completely non-judgmental environment. There's no such thing as a silly question. It's all about ideating ideas and essentially finding the balance that's going to help you, I suppose, be more productive when you're leaning towards technology and using it more in a positive mindset rather than a negative mindset. And we need to find out what that balance is. And with saying that, let's put this into practice. If you're watching this right now, I highly, highly recommend that you remove all other distractions. We've got 5 million Chrome tabs open, remove them. If you've got any dogs or kids around, get rid of them. No, I'm kidding. Can't get rid of those. But for this session, you have dedicated an hour of your life with us, myself, Mohammed, and the team. Let's make sure we make the most out of it. Let's make sure it's purposeful and make sure there's a positive outcome at the end. So stick with us, fill this full hour, stay interactive, and go along with the questions. So let's jump into the first part, which is, what is digital well-being? In this very short first section, we're just going to discuss what is digital well-being. And I suppose what better way to just put up on screen and see what it actually is. So Digital well-being is the state of being comfortable and content with how technology fits into your life. Next up, it is different for everyone. Now, I've been very, very fortunate to speak with people from all walks of life all over the world. And when it comes to being different, we are all different. We are all unique. I'm not saying that we need to change that, but when we approach technology and finding that balance, please don't think to yourself, well, he does it or she does it, I should do it like that. We are all our own individuals and we need to find this balance by ourselves. Next up is the result. When I say by ourselves, this is why you've come here today, to learn together. It's the result of feeling aware and in control of technology use, specifically your technology use. And digital well-being is about having a balanced relationship. And I think at some point out of today's session, you're going to get so tired of me saying balance. But balance is the main focus when we're looking to find the positive outcome when we use technology. So with that being said, I've already seen one hello from Lalithia from India. Big, big welcome to you. And if anybody else is currently watching today, please get involved. Go ahead and say hello to myself and Mohammed and get involved with the activities. Ask us questions, share your favorite emojis, just get involved as much as possible. But with that, now that we've defined what is digital well-being and understood that it is a balance, and it is very important to understand that we are all unique in our own way. So what balance means for you. Now, this specific exercise that we're about to jump into is going to be very, very important. So I'm going to be guiding you through a series of questions. And I highly, highly recommend that you have a pen and pad ready to go. I seem to have lost my pen. And I'd also like you to make sure that you've got your fingers ready to start typing away and getting involved with the chat. As mentioned, balance is one of the main goals when it comes to digital well-being. And how can we make the most out of technology without us being taken over by technology, which we may often feel very overwhelmed with all the technology that we do have. So what we're going to do over the next series of questions is I would like you to reflect on your relationship with your devices. Even the device that you're using right now to watch this particular live training. And I want you to write down these thoughts as we go. As we go along, write this down, but get involved with the chat as well. And I'm going to keep reminding you to do this is because if we're going to make this impactful and start understanding that balance with technology, it's very important that you practically start to write down and reflect on your behaviors when it comes to technology. Once you understand your behaviors, we can start to be more aware and hopefully gain some more control of that activity, that behavior that we are doing on a daily basis. Because let's face it, technology is a massive part of our lives and will continue to be so. So the very first question that I'd like to put up onto screen is going to be, what do you use your devices for? Please go ahead, take that piece of paper and that pen and start writing. And I don't want you to overthink this. I want you to think about the first thing that comes to your mind and start writing it down. What do you use your devices for? And if you'd like to break that down further, think about what do you spend a lot of time doing and what do you spend very little time doing? I'll give you an example. Well, when it comes to the devices that I use and spend a lot of time on it would be my PC, my actual work computer. This is a device that I use on a daily basis on hours and hours and on end. However, I also use my smartphone on a daily basis, whether I'm on the go, and of course it's a mobile phone. So on the go, could be moving around, could be on a bus, could be at a gym, could be going shopping, whichever it is, I have that device with me. But what am I using it for? I potentially could find a new place using Google Maps. I could be using social media. I could be working on a Chrome browser on my PC. So start listing down the things that you do and the devices that you use. Pop that down, write that down. And if you want to, share it in the chat with myself and Mohammed. We would absolutely love to know a little bit more about what do you use your devices for. Could be for finding directions. You could be using it for a fitness app. You could be using it for a stopwatch timer. You could be using Google Assistant to play music, for example. There is so many pieces of equipment, which are technology that surrounds us on a daily basis, I would like you to audit your life. I would like you to audit that and think about, what do you use your devices for? Pop it into the chat, write it down on that piece of paper, and think about as many devices that you do have. Maybe you want to list all of those. You've got a mobile device, you've got a PC, you've got a laptop, you've got a Tamagotchi, you've got a Game Boy, you've got an Xbox, you've got whatever piece of technology that you do have. What do you use that device for? Next up, Lalitha already popped in. You use your PC for study and a web series. Fantastic. And maybe this is another reason why you use it, because you're learning more with the Google Digital Garage. Thank you so much for sharing. If there's anybody else, make sure you pop it in there. We got the mobile device. You use social media and fitness. Thank you very much for getting involved. Next up, when does technology add the most value to your life? Now, this is important to think about, because these three questions, the first question is focused on what devices are we using, and making sure we audit and understand what devices that we have and what applications or what programs are we using. The next question is going to be focused on the positive aspects of, when does technology add the most value to your life? And do these things have anything in common? For example, I could use a fitness app to help me get in shape. Or I can connect with people from all over the globe. I've got family back in South Africa that I can speak to, which is very, very valuable to me, because without that technology, I would not be able to keep in touch with my family or my friends. It's a very simple example, but I want to make sure that you pop that down on that piece of paper that you have. And for anybody else that's watching, we've got Lalithia, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly, getting involved, getting stuck in, and really dedicating herself or himself to how you can improve your digital well-being. The first one was, what devices are we using? The next question is, when does it add the most value? And a couple more questions I'd like to ask to yourself is, do these positive things have anything in common? Do they have a specific time of day? Is there a place that you do them? Is there specific apps that you're going to be using? Are you using these devices when you are with people? There's a lot of questions you can start asking yourself, and I don't want you to lose yourself in all those questions. But first off, what devices? Next up is, what technology adds the most value to your life? And thank you so much, Lalitha. You got PC for studies and web series. You got mobile, social media, and fitness. And you got a tablet, which is notes making, which you're probably doing at this very moment in time. What's the most valuable? Which is one's going to be that's going to give you value moving forward? And while you're thinking about that, you can also think about, when does technology have the least value in your life? To give you a few examples of how technology can really not have value in my life, let's say, for example, right now, it's not an example, I'm delivering a live session on YouTube to all of you wonderful individuals. But if my phone started to ping and give me notifications, that is going to distract my attention and doesn't give me value, because I'm not focused on the task at hand. Another one would be mindlessly scrolling through social media, something that a lot of us may or may not do, normally when we're bored, or it's just a habitual thing that we just take out our phone and start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and that is not adding value to our life. Next up, you may think about playing long sessions. Maybe you're a gamer, for example, or maybe you like to watch series and you like to watch TV, or you like to watch movies, and maybe you watch for an entire day while you're lying in bed. All these types of questions are questions that we don't always ask ourselves, but I'm asking you right now is to think about, when does technology add the least value in your life? Okay. So those are the first three questions on understanding more about your life and how you are using your devices. We defined what devices you are using. We also thought about, when is it adding value, but also, when is it not adding any value? Understanding those specific moments, the specific times, and the devices that you use will help you learn how to create that balance that you're looking to create when it comes to technology. Now, this is not something that's just going to be done within 15 minutes, because we're only 15 minutes into it, and you're only ideating and starting to think about this and brainstorm this right now. what I highly recommend that you do after today's session is go back to your notes and start reflecting on what devices you are using. Because then once you define that, I want to jump into some research and understand a little bit more about how technology adds the most value when it is used for staying connected, self-improvement, gaining knowledge, and being productive. Now, this information has not just been plucked out of thin air. This is actually taken from research from Pew Research Center. Now, I'm going to talk you through a few of these boxes. And as we've hopefully just reflected on, we've understood that there's positive and negative behaviors when it comes to technology and the use of that technology. But if we start categorizing this and start thinking about, okay, if we're looking to stay connected, how can technology add value to my life? Well, you can use it for messaging. You can use it for SMS. You could use it for video, for taking photos, or calling my mom or my dad or my siblings or whoever it is. That is going to add value to my life regardless, unless you are not in a good relationship with that person or you're fighting with your mom. But let's stick with the fact that you do have the ability to connect with others. Next one is self-improvement. Now, when it adds value to your life, you're going to think about books, music, TV, Google Digital Garage live sessions. Self-improvement is going to add value to your life. Next up, gaining knowledge. Again, something that we're doing right now, and we're ticking all of those boxes because you've connected with myself and Mohammed. You are hopefully improving yourself. You're gaining more knowledge, and hopefully that will lead to productivity. Now, feel free to write these down, but these are the 4 main areas where technology really starts to add value in your life. But on the other hand, you can have technology that adds tremendous value, but maybe after going through a few of those previous questions, you start to pick out and realize that technology is always not the best to jump into. So technology can go wrong when we aren't intentional with our times. For example, today, if you decided to join today's session, were you intentional and thought to yourself, for the next hour, I'm going to dedicate myself to learning more about digital well-being and learning how to find that balance with technology? We often get disrupted. For example, looking at a device when we're going to bed. Now, this is an old habit that I used to have. I don't know about yourself, but I used to go to bed with my phone and maybe just scroll aimlessly. Next one, let people impact those relationships. Being on our device while having a conversation is not something that we should be doing, because let's say, for example, we have a conversation with our spouse, our mother, our friend, our family, whoever it may be, while we are connecting with them. If we have those technology right with us in our hand, it breaks that connection. So technology usage goes wrong when we are using it at the wrong time, but it can be incredibly beneficial when we're using it at the right time. Let's tie in a couple of research when it comes to this. In the UK, 49% of adult users are concerned about negative impacts on tech with others, whereas only 31% are concerned about their own tech usage. And to put this in perspective, I'd like to reassure everybody watching today is that everyone shares this concern. 29% of adult users across Europe, Middle East, and Africa are concerned about the negative impacts on their own tech usage. 52% of adult users across America and would be helping to improve at least one tech behavior. Now, when it comes down to these statistics, there is an understanding that technology has a positive impact on our lives, but also could have a negative impact. So ideally, your device will be used to stay in control. When we're using our devices, we need to be in control of this. So people want to feel in control of their tech usage. And maybe that's why you decided to join today's session. Next one is being purposeful. Having purpose is the key. People aspire to use technology intentionally rather than simply reducing the time they spent on tech. So in control is knowing that when you're using this device, you are going to be purposeful with this device. For example, if you use the device today to view this live training, you have purposefully chosen to join the session. The last one is net positive impacts. Now, people aim for the benefits to outweigh the negatives. I'll say that one more time. People aim for the benefits to outweigh the negatives. So in other words, rather than banning or removing everything entirely, how can we remove certain aspects that is having a negative impact in our life? So, what I would like you to do right now is write down goals that will help you achieve that balance. With the balance and ideals that you use in your mind, maybe you're looking to find time with family. I think this is a very, very important topic to talk about. But if you are looking to find more time with family, have that as a focus. Another one could be a higher efficiency at work. Everyone wants to be more efficient at work to save time, which will hopefully lead to more time with the family. Another one, feeling less scattered and more focused. Now, this is one of the biggest focuses for me is instead of me trying 5 million different things at one time, how do I dedicate half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour, like today's session, to actually empower myself and start learning more about how I can improve myself? So look back at what you've written. Now, hopefully, you've written down a few of those devices that you used, when it added value, when it least added value. Think about what goals would you like to achieve. You could use one of those examples where it's higher efficient at work, more time for the family, more time for the wife, the husband, whoever it may be. Define what that goal is and write it down on a piece of paper. Now, I don't think there's many people watching today, so if you do have any questions, please don't be shy. Myself and Mohammed, we love questions. We love queries. We love emojis. Get involved, ask us questions, because without you here today, this session essentially would be meaningless. So we really want to make sure we can help you in any way we can. Ask us questions, ask us queries, whatever it may be, we would love to help you. Now, again, I'd like to remind you one last time before we jump into the next section, which is there is no such thing as a silly question, especially when it comes to finding your balance with technology. Everyone is unique. Everyone is their own individual, and finding that balance is all going to depend on you as an individual, and we want to help you. So with that being said, what we did first, the first topic that we spoke about was what is digital well-being? Next up, we used a couple of questions, a few reflective questions, to start audit and understand more about your technology usage from an aspect of what's adding value to your life and what is not adding value to your life. And it's very, very important to differentiate between those two, because that's essentially going to allow you to create that balance of what are we going to be improving on and what should we be doing more of. So with that, we are now going to jump into learning a couple of tips and tools to achieving a better balance with technology. Now, the next couple of slides, we're going to start talking about something called heuristic thinking. Now that's something to think about. I'm actually going to pop that into the chat right now, and I'd like you to write that down, but also to Google it a little bit later, because this could take us on a long path of lots of information, but I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information at this moment. So when it comes to heuristic thinking, this is what we're going to start approaching. It's basically, how do we start thinking about our thought process on our brain when we start taking action on certain tasks or certain things that we have to do on a daily basis? And we need to move away from an unconscious to intentional behaviors. Now, the unconscious behaviors that we have is something that is just ingrained in individually to all of us. But how do we then turn that unconscious behavior into intentional behavior? And that's what myself and Mohammed are going to be showing you here today. Oh, excuse me. Which is going to be the first one, which is our brains may try to take as many shortcuts as possible. Now, you may be reading that and thinking, maybe I can read that a little bit faster. But our brains are memory optimizing machines. And I wish we could learn how to use 100% of our brains. But right now, our memory optimization is extremely high. What we do is our brain is designed to save as much time as possible with as least effort as possible. So often we use established patterns instead of forging new ones. In other words, we often fall back into old habits or just habits that are existing. We need to turn those existing habits into something that's more intentional. And the first step to do that is to recognize that you do have these unconscious behaviors. Now, of course, unconscious behaviors essentially means you are not aware of it. So today, we're going to help you try to learn more about what is it that you're behaving? What is it that you're behaving? More on the lines of how are you behaving and how can we intentionally change that? So to give you a very simple graph, or I suppose let's put it into a circle, we're thinking about the processes of our mental shortcuts on a daily basis. You're doing it right now, and so am I. What I like to call this is called heuristic thinking. It allows us to solve problems and essentially make judgments very quickly and very effectively. This rule of thumb strategy shortens decision time and also allows us to function more consistently without stopping every single time that we need to think about something. So let me stop thinking about that and move to this task, and move to this task. This might be absent-mindedly buttering your toast in the morning, for example. We are unconsciously know how to butter our toast, but it's a pattern that we formed throughout our life. It could be even the fact that we just brush our teeth on a daily basis. Again, heuristic thinking of absent-mindedly doing it because we know how to do it. This kind of thinking is called cognitive laziness, which means that the brain will take a decision that requires the least amount of effort in many instances. And these shortcuts are a great thing in our day-to-day life because it helps us solve problems much, much faster. However, these instances when shortcuts can be a few bad habits. It also applies to when you are using devices, for example. As much as you will wake up in the morning, don't even have to think about it. You get to your bathroom, you pick out your toothbrush, you start brushing your teeth. You're just unconsciously doing that. However, think about, maybe you're like me, you jump out of bed, or maybe you're in a certain situation where you're out with a drink or you're out in a restaurant and you take out that lovely phone that is always attached to us. And we are just find ourselves scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Why? Because we've created that pattern in our life that when we pick out our smartphone, we don't have much else to do. We go to our favorite application or social media and we just start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So highly, highly recommend that you jump into Google after today's session and start learning more about heuristic thinking. Once you understand more about heuristic thinking, you'll be more conscious of your behaviors. And once you are more conscious of your behaviors, you'll be able to intentionally change those. So hopefully that's been useful. What I'd like you to do now is we want to jump into a couple of tips and tools. Now, each of these tips and tools are going to lead to 3 extra tips. So we're going to look at each of these, and then each of them, we're going to give you 3 tips and tools for achieving that balance. So number 1, we're going to look at how we can create good routines. Good routines are, in my opinion, quite difficult to integrate into our life, but then we're going to jump into being more in control, making space for screen time, and being more focused at work. With these tips, hopefully you'll be able to apply this in your life. So the first one is creating good routines, tips and tools of observing your habits. The first place to start is to understand what are your current habits. And this is an exercise that we did at the very beginning of today's session, and we asked you those 3 questions. And hopefully you reflect on those questions and you have them written down on a piece of paper. Limit and track that app usage and do some spring cleaning. What I mean about spring cleaning is that think about the tasks or the routines that you currently have. Is it adding any value to your life? For example, you could leave your home screen just with the tools that you use. So every time you take out your mobile device, instead of having all of your favorite social media applications on your very home page that is very tempting to click onto, how do you start spring cleaning that first homepage and focus on a productive homepage? For example, maybe your Google Calendar, maybe your tasks, maybe your notes, but do a little bit of spring cleaning within the devices that you use, and then track and limit your app usage. Now, there is a fantastic app to help you on tracking and limiting your app usage. There's a couple on, one's called Quality Time, another one called Stay Free, and Your Hour. There's also another one called Family Link, which is created by Google to help you create a very positive environment or positive usage of technology with your family. And hopefully Mohammed will pop that into the chat at some point in today's session. Creating good routines, observe your habits, track and limit your usage by using those applications, and then do some spring cleaning. Could be on the devices that you use. If you open up your PC and you've got all the icons to social media or the programs that are going to distract you, do a bit of spring cleaning on those. Next one, be more in control. When it comes to being in control, sometimes we have to physically move things around. So put your devices to bed. For example, when you go to sleep, put your phone to sleep first, as if it was a device or an object that you use on a daily basis, and then of course away from where you are sleeping. Use the voice to control usage. Maybe you don't want to have those devices in your hand and you want to use something on the lines of Google Assistant to do very simple tasks that you may need to do. Instead of grabbing that device, Googling something, just ask Google Assistant or Siri or Alexa or whichever voice assistant you have, and then try meditation apps. When it comes to meditation apps, it is it's a great way to help you learn how to control your habits and also understand more about what you're going to do for that day, depending on that meditation. But there's some fantastic meditation apps out there. One, for example, is called Calm. Next up, make space for some tech-free time. So be present with others as much as possible. Now, this is something that has been quite a bit of an issue in our day-to-day activities, is because when we want to have these great conversations, we are often distracted by notifications or messages for others, which breaks the attention that we have with that individual. For example, right now, if you're watching this session, maybe on your TV or your PC or your laptop, and maybe you have your phone in your hand right now, that is not necessarily something we'd like to do. We want to focus on having that conversation in real time. Then enjoy the gift of JOMO. I know something called FOMO, but JOMO is more about the joy of missing out, the joy of knowing that you don't have to have technology in your hand or in your face all day, every day. Maybe you decide to have a whole afternoon technology free, go for a walk in the park or in wherever you are, and know that it is a joy to be away from that technology and you're not missing out on anything, because that technology is going to be there when you get back. Let your mind wander. Now give yourself time to do nothing, to daydream, not even just to meditate, just sometimes to simply do nothing. No social media, no TV, no laptop, no PC. And maybe you want to dedicate some time to do that, but it's important that you establish and make some time for tech-free time. Next one, be more focused at work. Now, I think we all want to be more focused at work, but the first one is managing your notifications. A lot of us have various applications. Now, it could be social media, it could be Slack, it could be Microsoft Teams, it could be lots of different applications that you use for work on a daily basis. But let's say, for example, you finish at 5 o'clock. How do we then make sure that you are away, or say that you're away, and stop those notifications when you are spending time with family or friends, or when you are not working, and vice versa? So when you are at work, maybe you want to make sure that you block out certain communications that would allow you to focus on the task at hand. Put your phone out of sight, out of mind. This is something that I do on a daily basis for my focus hours or 45-minute sessions. I will remove all other devices except for the one that I'm using, to allow me to remove those distractions. Disconnect and set OOO, which is out of office, and auto reply. Now, because technology allows us to connect with people on a 24-hour basis, that doesn't mean that you have to work on a 24-hour basis, or definitely not 7 days a week. So how can you disconnect? Make sure 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whenever you decide to clock off, that you create an auto reply, and knowing that this has been handled and you can come back to it the next day. When it comes to all the tips and tools, these are the tips and the tools to help you be more balanced and focused on how to create that balance that you're looking for. So it could be observing your habits. Very, very first step. Understand what you're currently doing, track that limits, that usage, and do some spring cleaning. At the very beginning, it's all about understanding your current situation and your current relationship with technology. The next one is then taking action by putting your devices to bed, making tech work for you, and using meditation apps or any apps that's going to help you with your digital well-being, for example, like Family Link or any of those applications that helps you track and understand your usage with technology. Now, when it comes to technology, we also need to remove it, make sure we dedicate times with our family, friends, or wherever else it is technology, other than technology, you're going to be spending time with people and understanding that it's sometimes a joy to miss out on technology, to have a focus with a real connection with a real person. Please make sure you do that. Last but not least is manage those notifications. Make sure that you manage the notifications for work and maybe for your personal life, which will allow you to have a lot more focus. I'm going to pause to see if there's any questions. I do not see any questions as of yet, but please don't be shy. We would love to help you as much as possible. And myself, Mohammed, and the team would love to know your feedback. So if you'd like to share your feedback, please go to goo.gle/digital garage feedback and let us know what you learned today. What is the one key takeaway that you learned from today? And just let us know your feedback. Now, lastly, we're now going to be jumping into applying tips and tools to form healthy habits. Let's quickly cover what we've discussed. Number one, we looked at what digital well-being is, and we understood that it is unique to everyone and everyone is going to be different. But there's a couple of things that we need to jump into, which was those questions, which was what devices are you using? When is it beneficial? When is it not beneficial? Then we jumped into a couple of tips and tools to help you create that balance and understand what technology do you use? How do we then use those tips and tools to improve your digital well-being or overall your balance with technology? But now we're going to look at how we can apply those tips and tools to form healthy habits. The very beginning, hopefully you mark down a few of those habits that you do that adds value. But now we want to continue with those habits and break the old habits that sometimes fall under the unconscious bias. So we're going to start small to change these habits. The most effective way to change habits is to start small. If you try to change big things quickly, there is a very, very high chance that you will feel overwhelmed and are more likely to fail. So in this specific section, we are going to be finding a couple of tips and tools aiming to change small behaviors. And by changing those small behaviors, you will have a larger outcome in the long run. Very, very important that when you approach this, don't change everything at one go. For example, after today's session, you think to yourself, well, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to remove distractions. I'm going to delete applications. I'm going to be dedicating an hour every day for meditation. I'm going to be having a focus time for 45 minutes. You'll get very, very overwhelmed. And there's a lot of tasks that you'll need to do to make you feel successful. So I'm going to emphasize the point that we want to start small and change those habits. How do we do that? What I'd like you to do is write down 3 tips and tools that will help you achieve your balance with your balance goals and how you'll commit to using them. Now, I'd like you to spend a few moments to think about this. Now, whether you write it down on a piece of paper or share it in the chat, myself and Mohammed would love to know, but these 3 tips and tools are going to be something that you're going to look at on a weekly basis. Now, to give your minds a little bit of a jungle, I'm not going to give you more information because we've probably given you tons of information already. What I want you to do now is think of these few examples on how you can now apply this within your own life. For example, having a higher efficiency at work. That is this lovely lady's goal. Her goal is to have a higher efficiency at work. And maybe that is something that you'd like to do as well. And I think a lot of us want to be more efficient at work. If that's your goal, great. But now, how are you going to apply a few of those tips and tools that we spoke about to make this goal come to fruition? Could be practice deep work when I'm writing reports, using the do not disturb when you're focusing on work, and disconnecting when needing from certain apps to help focus. These 3 tips and tools will help this individual have a higher efficiency at work. Now, feel free to take those, but also focus on what's good for you. Remember, this is an individual exercise and it's going to be different for everyone. So define firstly, what is the goal? What are you looking to do? Be more efficient at work. Maybe you're looking to spend more time with family. And this is something that should be on everyone's mind, is how do we then spend more time with family to create that balance that we have with technology as well? So to be more present during family meal times, if you are having a meal with your lovely family, maybe you want to remove your devices completely and dedicate that hour, hopefully just like you're doing right now, by dedicating an hour with us today to learn more on how to improve yourself. In this specific instance, I would remove devices and dedicate an hour with my family. Next one, to give the gift of JOMO, which is not FOMO, it's JOMO, which is the joy of missing out on the next family holiday. Next one, implement screen-free meals to connect with the family. Now, all we're doing right now is we're connecting the dots. So whatever you found that was going to add value to your life and is going to help you achieve those goals, start applying those. And when it comes down to spending more time with your family and removing those those devices, have that focus. So share one commitment with the group. What commitments do you currently have that you would like to have leading out of today's session? So you're looking to find your balance with technology. What is the one commitment that you either want to write it down on a piece of paper or you'd like to pop it into the chat? Either or, we'd like to know what that commitment is. And to give you one of my commitments at this very moment in time is and I think all of us should try to find that balance with technology, but one of my biggest focuses right now is when I am working and I have dedicated a few hours a day on a specific task or a specific project, I make a concerted effort to remove every other device from my area or from my eye line or from the place that I can hear it and focus on one device. That is a commitment that I've made and it has had a dramatic impact on my productivity on a daily basis. So I haven't seen any commitments in the chat as of yet because I think we are a little bit quiet today, but if you do, please pop it into the chat. Now, how to master your commitments. Now, once you've made that commitment of removing devices or on maybe removing those distractions, removing those notifications for work, whatever you have chosen, again, it's an individual exercise. The first one to master your commitment is to be more aware of the things that trigger negative behaviors. To give an example of this, if I'm bored or I'm waiting for a table at a restaurant, for example, or if I'm waiting for a friend to come to a restaurant, or I'm just generally waiting and I'm bored, I have a very, very common habit of just simply taking out my phone, clicking on my favorite social media application or whatever application, and then just aimlessly scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Or I may find myself doing that in between work or in between conversations, and that is really not having a positive impact on my life. So it's identifying those negative behaviors and being more self-aware. Next up is to find ways to reward yourself with positive behaviors. Now, I like to play games. Everyone likes to play a few games here and there. Online gaming, it's available, but I don't play it all the time. However, I use that as almost a reward for myself for dedicating maybe a 5-hour session for studying or a few hours on working on a specific task. And after I finish that task, then I can reward myself by playing 10, 15, 20 minutes of some games, for example. Now, this may be different for you, but find out how you can reward yourself. Next up, work hard to change your routine. And it comes back to that main point that we spoke about earlier. When you're looking to change your routine or your habits, don't change everything at the same time. You'll feel overwhelmed and you will often lead to failure, which then often leads to poor morale, which then leads you to be demotivated, and it just leads you onto a long path of just unproductiveness, should we say. So work hard to change your routine, change small things every single day, whether you're going to wake up at 6:30 every day, whether you're going to go for gym for an hour every morning, whether you're going to meditate for 10 minutes, try to apply maybe 2 or 3 things a week and start to gauge on how that activity is improving on your life and if you're finding that balance with technology. The last one is expect change to be gradual. Celebrate the small wins as much as possible. If you felt like you can't focus for more than an hour, if you managed to sit down for an hour and completed a task, make sure you reward yourself. Make sure you celebrate those small wins and make sure that you are being good to yourself. As much as technology can help you with lots of ideas and helping you with your life, we're going to understand that with these small tasks, especially when it's gradual, we need to celebrate those small wins. Okay, a little bit of a quieter group today. So what have we covered today? Well, we've covered the understanding on the concept of digital well-being. We've understood that it's unique to everybody and that everybody needs to find out their own behaviors, whether they be unconscious, and we need to turn those unconscious behaviors into intentional behaviors. And we spoke about something called heuristic thinking. But before we jumped into heuristic thinking, we reflected on a few questions, which was, which devices are you currently using? Which ones do you use the most and which ones don't? Which ones do you add value to your life and which ones don't add value to your life? And hopefully by doing that simple, reflective question, you'll start understanding the differences between the two and you'll start to learn how you can apply it to your own life. Then we jumped into learning some tips and tools for achieving that balance. There was quite a few tips and tools, but this will be applicable to you individually on which ones you would like to apply. And then we looked at applying those tips and tools to form healthy habits. But I haven't seen any questions as of yet. It's been a little bit of a quiet one. So what we're going to finish off on to see if there's any questions or queries. I do not see any questions or queries in the chat at the moment, but if you enjoyed today's session, if you gained any value from it, please go ahead and let us know your feedback. Myself, Mohammed, and the team would love to know. Please go to goo.gle/digital garage feedback. But what are your next steps? Well, hopefully after today's session, you've hopefully created a few questions for yourself. You've addressed a few of those questions. You're more self-aware of your habits and the behaviors that you have with your technology. By doing that simple audit, you can now look at how you can apply that within your life. But after today's session, what I highly recommend that you do is take that piece of paper with all those notes that you have, start reflecting on those, start applying those tools and those tips. And to help you further, there are tons more live trainings and in-person sessions if you are in the UK. Make sure you click in the link in the description below. It'll take you to the website and give you so much information. If you're looking to find more about digital marketing, you're looking to learn more about social media, digital marketing, finding your balance with technology, for example, for today, there's many, many more live sessions ready and waiting to help you. But I think we're going to start coming towards the end. There's a little bit of an ending early today. So I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone that decided to join today's session. Again, Mohammed has popped the link into the feedback form. We would love it if you shout about this on social media. Make sure you hashtag Digital Garage. But I'd like to say a big thank you to Mohammed for answering all the questions and interacting within the chat and being along here with the journey today. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody for watching. But without further ado, I'm going to say look after yourself, look after each other, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.